welcome back to This Is How I Disappoint My Parents podcast. I am your host, Kayla. And this would be episode 4 of this podcast. And I'll be very shocked if you make it this far. I suppose in recent lights of events, I wanted to talk about doctors. I swear I have seen the most different types of doctor specialists in the whole month of, May into June than I've seen in years. What wasn't clear or even mentioned in my previous episodes is that I had just recently moved. I moved into our new place, our new home, with my partner in the beginning of April, so any of the doctors that I tried to establish at our previous place, I had to switch up because I was not about to drive over an hour just to get to the appointment, spend an hour or so at the appointment, and then driving an hour back. No thank you, no way. No doctor appointment I feel right now is worth 3 hours or so. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about doctors. And I have to say, being an adult sucks. I was kind of tempted, the last time I saw my grandmother, I was kind of tempted to relate to her about how often she goes to the doctors. Because she does. Every now and then, especially in the last couple of months, she would send me weekly texts about her health, my grandfather's health, and it was almost every week. It was a new doctor, new appointment, or a checkup on the same thing. Now, I think my grandmother now is in her 60s, and my grandfather I think he turned 74 last year. Nonetheless, I was really tempted to. When I last saw her to talk to her, I was really tempted to bring that up. I think in college, so yes, I did go to college, and I have this impression that college kids don't care about their health. And I think part of it is because of how expensive it is. And kids getting through college, they're not thinking about doctor appointments or getting to them. No, they're thinking about a class that they need to prepare for, or a test, or like an exam that they have to take, which is very reasonable. I was there. I was present. But it was just so interesting to me, like that culture in college where you're just thinking about passing and getting through the day, and everything's expensive. Depending on your situation, you are away from home. You only got your friends, or you don't got no one, and you're just trying to make it through. I guess I'm just very observant and not quite naive enough to know that my situation, specifically regarding like healthcare, is pretty different in comparison to, a lot of kids my age, or at least back then. And to be more specific, my mom, she worked at our health insurance company. So our health insurance was through her job. And according to, even in high school, I went to see this nurse practitioner who almost every time, as if she'd never remembered, she would always mention, like, if my mom worked in government, because I guess our insurance was pretty good. Which, at the time, I didn't know or care. I mean, I was in high school. But now, looking back then, I'm like, oh, crud, I had it very different. I was able to continuously go to doctors. I was doing my annuals, going to the gynecologist every year, and I was going to the dentist every 6 months. And one point in time, I could see how it was hard for a college student to do that, to do preventative health appointments. And on another side, I'm like, well, maybe they should have made up time for that. I mean, part of me, for almost everything, I want to say that if something's important enough, you will make time for it. And I suppose a lot of college kids my age didn't care. Or there was definitely so many more other important things going on. Which can't fault them for. Definitely isn't. I'm not faulting anyone for that. I guess I just didn't realize the difference. So when I talk about all these appointments that I've had recently, I feel weird. Because it wasn't that long ago that I was a college student. I graduated in 2023. And yeah, but what? 2.5 years later for me graduating. So yeah, just to clarify, I graduated in December of 2023. So yeah, 2.5 years or so. Yeah, oh no, would it be 2.5 years? Because, never mind, I'm not going to do this math right now. Not the point. So yes, as a 23-year-old, I feel very silly about talking about all my appointments, whether it be right now or with my grandmother, especially when I take into consideration, like, everyone else my age. Isn't that silly? So, with all these appointments and such, yes, I had, my biggest point was talking about the doctors, so I guess within the last year, I haven't had the best of doctors, so I moved out soon after I graduated, so I've been pretty much out of my parents' house since the beginning of 2024, and so because I moved 2 hours away from my parents, I really felt like I needed to set up new doctors. Especially because I was on medications for my mental health. And so that's what I had done. And I'm not saying that back then the doctors were subpar. I don't know. I feel like before this point, before graduation, before moving out, I guess I didn't care. I guess I didn't care about who I saw or what treatment was happening. And so when I was transitioning from all my doctors before moving out, I just chose practices where they were fairly good rated and that they took in the insurance, because to me that's what had mattered, that they took the insurance, pretty much. I'm not trying to exaggerate too much, but I have seen different doctors in the last year. And they were all about, they're friendly and it was okay. And I didn't have too many complaints except for the last 2 different specialists. But I found out that how I go about doctor appointments, how I go about scheduling or finding the right one, I feel like I've been going about it so wrong. And it didn't really click until like the beginning of this year, where I was like, something needs to change. Like, I'm not happy with the care I'm getting. So, for example, I this is a great example that I think I will just share one. I'll have to, if I say anything more, I'll have to cut it out. But I had, summer of 2024, I had gotten, I guess this raised lump on my armpit, and it was very small at first. Didn't go away. At first I thought it was a pimple, and didn't go away, and my underarm started getting extremely itchy. Now, I never had poison ivy, but this itch was insane. And so I did my best for a while not to itch it, but at times it got so bad. Like, I couldn't fall asleep because it was itchy. It was so intensely itchy. And at first I thought I was allergic to deodorant or like whatever I was using. I was trying to diagnose it myself. And it didn't really concern me until it started getting bigger and it wasn't going away and the itchiness was getting even more intense. So I was kind of stuck with two options. Whether setting up an appointment with the primary care doctor that I had initiated seeing a couple months before, or I could talk to the nurse practitioner I was seeing at the time about my skin issue, because I was told if they have any rash came to be that I should let them know, and I did eventually do that, because they were concerned about a side effect of one of my mood disorder medications. So I ended up going on my way to find a dermatologist, a local one, because I didn't really want to drive that far. And at the time, I don't know if I made this clear, but my previous job, I was driving everywhere and anywhere. So for a specialist, I really didn't want to drive any more than 20 minutes. And so the practice I found was only 10-15 minutes away. And I get in an appointment maybe a month and a half after my initial discovery. And when the time comes, I do the paperwork, I do the phone call, the intake, whatnot. When the appointment comes, and this is beginning of October, when I finally was able to get in to see the dermatologist. And so I get there, and I'm describing everything. They're taking a look at it, and the guy is just he appears so dumbfounded based upon my symptoms and I guess the timetable. So what he does is he takes a biopsy of it. And the way he's acting, he seems very concerned. And I'm thinking, wow, I've got cancer. So he takes that biopsy, he sends it in for testing, and he essentially gives me a cream. I think at the time it was Desitin. And he gives me a cream, and he tells me I need to put this on twice a day. So the follow-up appointment comes, and based upon their portal, which that's another thing too, every freaking doctor practice and their mother has their own patient portal. But I got to see the results before that appointment. And I mentioned something about psoriatic dermatitis, something like that. And I get a phone call from the receptionist, I guess, of this practice, and they tell me what I have and the medications that they're ordering for it. And they ask me if I have any questions. And my idiot self says no. And so I get to the appointment. I think the next appointment was probably towards the end of November, maybe mid-November, if I remember correctly. And the next time I see him, I describe what's going on. The plaques are gone. I confirmed that is psoriasis. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the common term was psoriasis. And so I confirmed with him on how to apply the creams, because when they had initially told me what I had, over the phone, I didn't ask any questions. So, he talked to me about it, I guess the treatment a little bit more, because apparently the treatment for psoriasis definitely varies on the person and the severity. La-da-da-da. So, what bugged me the most, though, is that after he knew the results, after that's already been discussed and whatnot, he looks so confused. He looks so confused on, I guess, on my results. I don't know. He checked out the area again, and he made this one comment about how he wasn't quite sure about the results of the biopsy and what he's seeing. And yeah, that was very alarming. And let's just say that I didn't see this dermatologist again. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I have seen a dermatologist before. Back in high school. And I guess I just didn't care, or maybe because it was a different issue that I didn't know what to expect. I'm not sure where my naiveness came from. So that happened. That happened. I remember being very frustrated about it. And actually, at that point, I think I was frustrated with every new medical doctor I was seeing since moving out. I think part of it is because I had to repeat information. I had to talk about my history and my previous diagnoses, and basically every appointment and almost every appointment with a new specialist, I had to recount everything. I felt like I had to recount everything from the moment I was born, all the issues my family members have, and it just became exhausting. The other specialist that I've seen pretty often was basically a hand, wrist, shoulder, cervical, spine surgeons, and a neurosurgeon over the last year or two. And that was for all the issues relating to the pain in my hand, wrist, shoulder situation. And that in itself was extremely, extremely stressful because I had pain and no one knew what to do about it. I had gone to the urgent care. They did an x-ray then and there to see what was wrong with, I think it was my shoulder at that point they did an x-ray on. And nothing was wrong that they could tell. I did physical therapy. Nothing was wrong that they could tell. With each new specialist, and I guess kind of thankfully, the specialists that I was seeing last year, they were all in the same medical group. They were basically colleagues, and they were sending me to each other. It was being passed around. They couldn't find anything either. And I guess scarily enough, the last person I saw from that medical group gave me a cortisol steroid shot in my wrist. That pain was something else. Otherworldly, people could say. But anyways, when that didn't work, and I saw him for a follow-up, I was so over everything and anyone because the pain I kept having and having no answers was absolutely frustrating. There wasn't anything more, like any other symptoms I knew how to talk about or explain any further. Like, I presented them with what I knew, and it wasn't enough to get a diagnosis. So this surgeon, sitting across from me, and I'm like, just, I guess, telling him how frustrated I am because I'm in pain. Because I had gotten like an MRI on my cervical spine, I had gotten x-rays, and nothing was showing that there was a problem at all. And this guy was the surgeon. He scheduled me for surgery for carpal tunnel on my wrist that I did not have. Let me be clear. he scheduled wrist surgery, like carpal tunnel surgery on my wrist when I didn't have carpal tunnel. And this was confirmed when I went to another doctor for the same, it's called a ENG test. I had done 2 ENGs. And the first one showed nothing. It didn't show that I had carpal tunnel. And yet he still, scheduled me for surgery, getting that approved. And then I saw a doctor from another practice. Not even the doctor yet. I spoke to the physician assistant describing everything. And then they do an ENG test at that practice. And it turns out I don't have any nerve construction that would warrant a carpal tunnel surgery. So, yeah, almost got unnecessary surgery to, cut open my tendon in my wrist earlier this year. Yeah. So, I feel like I've been, I feel like a skee ball. Or maybe not skee ball. Let me think of it. Whatever. The point being is that I've had my fair share of doctor experiences within the last year and a half that I feel like I never had in my whole lifetime. My most recent visits for doctors were pretty good. They were pretty good in comparison to all of 2024 doctor experiences were utter garbage and frustrating, and it was a little bit more annoying, actually, the past few appointments because I was going to see a different doctor for the same issues. But overall, I guess I'm more hopeful now, especially given that x-ray I had mentioned previous episode where it actually showed something. So I'm a little bit hopeful about that. But yeah, no, doctors is a whole nother level of energy and complications. I guess the next topic I wanted to go on about is that if you're living in America, our president decided to sign a bill into law on July 4th of 2025. And to be very honest, I only skimmed some of it. I'm not going to read all of it. I should. Not saying I should be ignorant. I'm just saying I was, at the time, still kind of am, the most interested about Medicaid dollars and that budgeting. Because my previous employment, everything was based off of Medicaid funding. Everything. From the services, the waiver, budgeting, my employer, that's how they got reimbursed for everything, pretty much. And all my clients, they had to have Medicaid in order to participate in these programs that I coordinated and supported and monitored. So I was personally interested in what would happen, and presently I haven't seen, at least for my state and locally, I haven't seen anything yet, which makes sense. It's only been 5 days past July 4th, at least when I'm recording, and I haven't seen anything present day, and I'm just very curious and then also worried about people with disabilities, their outcome. I'll be very curious how much is going to be affected to intellectual disability and/or autism individuals, at least in my state, because I know every state has different programs, if they do have programs. And actually, my state is a very popular state for the services and support that these individuals get. So I've seen that world. I've seen the process, and actually, it took me, a couple months for me to realize that, I've been around this process my whole life, because my older sister, she's autistic. My younger sister is autistic. So I didn't realize until this past, working there, that my mother had to go through all this. From the paperwork to submitting evidence that my siblings are still disabled and updating their information every year. My mom always had to submit her pay stubs as proof. If she made too much, the payments, their monthly, Social Security payments would go lower, if my mom made too much. So it was very interesting, for me at least, to see that process for the people I worked with when I was employed, and reflecting on, I've lived around this, but I didn't know. Yeah, so I wanted to mention it because this is a very curious thing for me. My father, I guess another reason why he's disappointed in me, is that I don't share the same political views as him. And he definitely doesn't agree with some of the things that I am concerned about. That doesn't make our relationship or our conversations uncivilized. I think for the most part, it's usually respectful. And it's pretty interesting to hear him support Republicans and being Republican and supporting Donald Trump, all that. And considering, who he's surrounded by. And for the fact that he's on disability too. So it's very, very intriguing to me, him having those standpoints, conservative standpoints, with his reality. It's very intriguing to me, and that's what makes my conversations with my dad very, interesting, to hear what he believes and what he thinks and how the country should be and this and that. And then it's equally interesting for me to observe his responses to what I say. And usually my responses are usually there's more to it, or things aren't black and white. I guess me being less ignorant since the beginning of high school, I've seen or heard more about my dad's political viewpoints than ever. And in 2016, I'd never ever experienced my dad more into politics than he was back then. It was almost everything he talked about. He always had a Republican or conservative party radio show on. He listened to a guy called Glenn Beck, and my dad always had that radio playing. Before 2016, it was always rock, hard rock, I guess soft rock, I don't know. It was always music, because my dad was always outside doing something, pretty much. And so that, when 2016 kind of came around, it became politics. And all those years since, it pretty much has been. And it was just interesting to see my dad be so more vocal about it and having these conversations. And honestly, it did change the way I respected my dad. It didn't. Like, I have so much respect for my dad. But it did, at least by now, it has made me think that it's okay not to share the same viewpoints as my dad. And that was made apparent in the most recent elections in the U.S., like the most recent presidential elections, because I would go to my parents to see, like, kind of, like, gauge their opinions, their viewpoints. Looking back on it, of course, how different my dad was to my mom's viewpoint, and it became this thing, at least in my head, where, like, if I was going to talk politics, it was going to be with my dad. Because my dad was the most in tune to the world. So, if I had to kind of talk to someone, it was to him about politics. I think part of that is that I had this safety net that he would love me no matter what. Tuning in, like, there was such a controversy between, like, what you believed in. Like, if you were any ounce of, like, Republican, you were getting hated on. Any ounce of Democrat, you were being hated on. Like, it was so tense that when I was in 12th grade, in statistics, we were making a poll, and everyone went around the room and they had to state their political affiliation. And it was me, maybe two others, that had mentioned conservative. And honestly, it was very ostracizing. And my reason for being a Republican was so stupid. When I was deciding political parties, especially when registering to vote, I had Googled a few things. Number one, I had Googled what political affiliation was John F. Kennedy. I think at the time when I was looking it up, I was looking for, like, presidents that were, like, stand-up guys. And for whatever reason, I felt, maybe I found something about John F. Kennedy that I didn't like. I don't know if maybe I saw something about, like, Marilyn Monroe. I'm not entirely certain. So anyways, I went further into history. And Abraham Lincoln was part of the Republican Party. So I was like, oh, he, couldn't do no wrong, I guess. I don't know. So that's how I made my determination when I registered. And also the fact that my dad was registered to be a Republican. So that gave me that comfort there too. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just an interesting dynamic thing. Politics and family and how relationships literally ended. Since 2016, I swear, relationships with each other have just ended based upon political affiliation and beliefs. Which was the scariest thing. Like 10 plus year old friendships would be ended over political beliefs. And so I was on social media, of course, almost everyone is, and just, I could publicly see it. Like, I had a large, Facebook friends, mostly a family. Actually, a lot of it was on family. And so part of the algorithm, at least a couple years ago, you could see what your Facebook friends were interacting with, like the type of posts, the comments, if they were tagged, la-da-la-da-da-da. And almost every time there was, basically the presidential election, people were posting like, hey, if you're voting for this person, we're no longer friends. If you believe this, remove me as a friend. I bet that's still happening. I guess all the psychology that, I don't know the technical terms around it right now. It's just so intriguing to me of how people's opinions on each other and relationships, it's just heavily influenced, at least it seems almost overnight, if something political happens. Or if you find out that someone you thought you knew believed in something that you are completely against. An interesting subject. Won't get into it. Because it's going to be so dicey. So, one of my great aunts, she still does, she posts about Donald Trump. President Trump. But even before that, before he was elected, she would post about him. At least during the President Biden era. And so she's made that stance. She supports him. She still supports him. At least from the most recent post I've seen, which was maybe a week ago. And she ends up posting, and I think this is since his first run as President Trump. She posts about abortion. And knowing my great aunt, and I spent summers with her, and she honestly still is my absolutely favorite great aunt I have. I love her so much. I think she's so awesome in almost every way. But I'm fascinated by that, knowing that she is pro-life, like full-on pro-life. Like, for me, that doesn't sway how much I love her, or how much I respect her. That doesn't, for me personally, that does not. Even though I'm 1,000% pro-choice, don't tell a woman what she can and cannot do when it comes to her body. Like, no politician, no government has that right to decide for that woman. And I am a very firm stance on that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, really, for women in her body. But even with my firm stance on that, I find it's okay for others to have their opinions and their beliefs. Like, unless I find something so, like, maybe if I interact with someone that's filled with so much hate, I would have to stop talking to them, because they don't deserve time, energy, a thought in my head, or a feeling in my heart. I think that would be my only exception right now. Of course, things can change. I'm so interested in this whole phenomenon. At least when it specifically comes to beliefs and, I guess, politics. Yeah, love my great aunt. Love my dad. And maybe if I had, like, bad blood with them, it would be easier for me to, like, oh, that's another thing that I don't like about them. But that's simply not the case, I guess, for those two people. So yeah, I guess I'm just very intrigued on you guys' experiences with, I guess, the changing political and social world, and how that has influenced your relationships and friendships, and even, your family members and who you spend time with. I'm very, very intrigued about this, actually. So, anyways, this is how I disappoint my parents. Podcast episode 4. It's been great talking for this long. Oh my gosh. And that's about it.